A self-described working woman wrote a letter in 1874 to the Working Man's Advocate, a newspaper read mostly by trade union men. The world does not accord any privileges to women workers, but if she was to fight for her interests, they would say how rough and coarse she is. Why is it, she asked, that a woman cannot be virtuous if she does mingle with the toilers? In a nutshell, this anonymous correspondent captured the tension that erupted for women after the Civil War. The Civil War provided the background against which wage-earning women began to reevaluate their conditions. The war, with its demands for greater productivity, encouraged manufacturers to recruit females as well as to increase the intensity of labor. It accelerated the process of business incorporation, loosening the last vestiges of mercantile control. High tariffs, legislated in 1863, protected manufactured goods from competition. Generous land grants helped to extend the railroad system across the continent, opening up national markets. Soon, a wave of new immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe fueled the industrial engines, enabling industry to hire easily and cheaply from a surplus labor force. The conditions of working people deteriorated dramatically. Eager to preserve the liberty of employers to expand production, the courts continued, as they had before the Civil War, to deny workers the right to negotiate collectively. Trade unions, the courts argued, restrained trade. This notion, which forbade conspiracies of workers or trade unions, did not exempt the thousands of women who were drawn into the workforce as a result of war. At the time the Civil War erupted in 1861, about 20% of all free adult women could be found in the labor force. We can at least double this proportion for free black women. Men who went to war left women without potential husbands and wives without support. Economic need and the desire to serve drew perhaps 300,000 women who might otherwise have stayed at home into jobs. And although the Civil War expanded job opportunities, opening clerical jobs to some women, legitimizing nursing as a profession, and dramatically increasing the number of female teachers, the Civil War did not benefit all women. For the skilled, new economic opportunities offered new life choices, making possible visions of life outside a restricted woman's sphere. The prospects for the unskilled were more problematic. Following the war, immigrants and their daughters dominated the female manufacturing labor force, and fully half of these women worked in the needle trades. Free women tended to work in jobs that were set aside for women. For example, 85% of all domestic servants were female. Probably 90% of emancipated, wage-earning women found jobs in domestic service. While about 1/3 of the manufacturing labor force was also female, in the textile mills, 80% of all workers were women. The Domestic Code helps us to understand this distribution of labor. About half of all white women would never undertake wage work at all. As we know, that didn't mean that they didn't work. It just meant that they weren't working for wages. Of the remaining half, about 2/3 stopped working for wages when they married. But many of these women continued to earn incomes by taking in boarders or laundry, or by working at home, making paper flowers or sewing parts of garments. Some helped and I use that word advisedly, their husbands' farms or assisted in their artisanal shops. We have a hard time keeping count of these women because until 1860, the census did not bother to count married women as workers. The combination of large numbers of women seeking work and the need for rapid production yielded a particularly disorganized labor market. Wage-earning women complained bitterly of economic hardship. They sought remedies from a sympathetic public, from trade unions, and from government. But doing so placed them in direct conflict with a belief system that still largely restricted women to home roles. In the 2 decades following the Civil War, women engaged in widespread protest and organized extensively in trade unions and production cooperatives. Such activities suggest that women did not readily understand themselves as functioning in a limited sphere. And yet, the way in which women attempted to alter their conditions reveals a sophisticated awareness of the degree to which wage earning set them apart from the conventional middle class. At the same time, local government, male trade unions, and women's voluntary associations became concerned that this division would create an insurmountable barrier, forever unfitting women who had worked for a living from creating harmonious families. Reconciling women's now firmly embedded places in the labor force with the belief that women belonged at home would be a tough job.